just when you think it can't get any worse, it does. And you can just
Mm.
kind of see and feel the devastation. And I just think it's now kind of kicking in for everyone that he's not going to be on the grid next year. And this race was definitely a indicator as to why. Bottas ended up in the gravel.
Yeah.
So
I
he
should have
beat
bet money on that. Like I had a feeling that he wasn't going to win this. Do you know? Like he just hasn't scored any points for so
yeah,
many races, and I was like, I wonder if he's even going to make it to the end of this race, and he didn't.
yeah.
I should have bet money. Obviously, Alonso loves to troll the FIA and just troll everybody in general. So he's decided now that this is his soapbox that he's going to stand on, and he's like, this decision on this penalty will decide like the way the FIA are. And I'm like, hold on a second, we've got like cost cap, Abu Dhabi. Like there are so many other things that we've been through in the last year or so that are literally kind of showing us how the FIA are. And Alonso thinks that he's the center of attention now because he had a freaking broken wing mirror. Hi guys, welcome back to On the Chicane. You're here with me, Paris, and my co-host Marium, and today we are discussing the Austin Grand Prix in the United States of America. The COTA Grand Prix was amazing this weekend. I feel like for me, best race of the season. I don't know how you feel.
Yeah, definitely up there. It was so much happened, so much was going on. I really enjoyed it. I haven't enjoyed a race like that in quite a while. So yeah, I mean, it's funny because you get people that are like, "Oh, what's the point in watching races now? That like the championship's been decided." But I'm like, you still get really good racing. So
Yeah.
if you're actually a fan of F1, then you'd watch it simply for that and all the good battles that you have. And yeah, I mean, it was definitely worth a watch, I would say.
I totally agree. I think the energy this weekend, like you always expect a lot of energy around the United States Grand Prix just because, it's America. They do it bigger, they do it better, they do it louder, and it's just how they are. Um, but actually the racing, like you said, this weekend was up to scratch. It was on track battles, it was strategy, it was tires, it was everything that I love in a race. And you had like penalties this weekend. So people were out of order and just having to like fight their way back through the pack and stuff. So for me, 10 out of 10. Actually, 9 out of 10. There was only one thing that could have made it slightly better for me
I
personally.
know what that is.
Um, wonder what that is. But yeah, so let's dive straight in. So, like you said, we're kind of coming to the end of the season. 2022 season is now got 3 races left after this one. Um, that's just gone. And like you said, people might be wondering what's the point of still watching? There's still things up for grabs. Like there's still the second place in the Constructors' Championship between Ferrari and Mercedes, or even like third and fourth place between Alpine and McLaren. Like that's still really close. And you still have like the World Drivers' Championship, so Perez and Leclerc for second place. So there's still kind of little things that could be won in that sense, right?
Yeah, no, so many things. I think there's at the end of the day, you're still battling for money, you're still battling for reputation and essentially your honor on the grid for next year. So, there's still so much to fight for, especially for the second place and third place. So even though Red Bull have managed to secure, actually, this is the first time in like years that they managed to secure both the drivers and the constructors. So well done, Red Bull. Um, but yeah, even though they've managed to get first in both, doesn't mean that there's not still positions to fight for. So yeah, for anyone who does say, and I'm saying this because I've had literally someone say it to me, why would you still watch it when like the championship's been decided? There's still so much to watch for, and honestly, just the racing on Sunday was just top level. And I was on the edge of my sofa for sure for so many laps. So yeah, definitely worth watching.
But yeah, let's wheel it back to Saturday a little bit. So we had a pretty epic qualifying. Like I said, there was some penalties that were already going out. So we had Perez, who had a 5 place grid penalty. You had Leclerc with a 10 place grid penalty, and then you had, I think, Zhou, who had a 5 place grid penalty. So there was already like a few people out of position onto the grid, and basically we knew that wherever Perez and wherever Leclerc qualified, they would be much further back. So that would already bump up, a few people in the grid. And also Leclerc still wanted to get like pole position, because if he did, then that meant that he was still just outside of the top 10. So he was still kind of battling right until the very end of Q3. What else happened in qualifying? I think so. You had like the Mercedes, who were literally up there for the first time, proper up there this season, trading purple sectors with like Leclerc and Sainz and Verstappen, and you did not know who was going to end up on pole for this race. And at the end, Sainz just took it by a little bit, but kudos to him, because I feel like everybody, I keep saying this, but I feel like people don't necessarily rate him in the same way that they rate Leclerc. So when he does really well, I'm really proud for him. Like, I'm really happy for him that he gets to kind of shine a little bit and show how good he is.
Yeah. No, yeah, there was so much that happened in quali, and that was definitely a highlight. And I think even like Crofty and Brundle were a little bit surprised to see Carlos up there on in pole. But yeah, I mean, you had the Astons doing really well.
Yep.
Stroll qualified P7, and because of the penalties, moved up to P5. I think even Seb was in the top 10 for
Yeah.
the race. So yeah, everything was kind of all out of order. Surprisingly, Ocon was out in Q1.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you think this is surprising or not, but Ricardo did not have the race that he wanted and was
He did
out.
not have a great weekend. And
He
for
had an
him,
awful
Cota's
weekend.
usually like one of his favorite tracks, he always says.
He did say afterwards, he was like, look, like as much as I love Texas and this race, like the actual race was not it for me.
Mm.
And I don't know if everyone's seen, there's a clip of him going around in the media pen afterwards where he's like, um, just when you think it can't get any worse, it does. And you can just
Mm.
kind of see and feel the devastation. And I just think it's now kind of kicking in for everyone that he's not going to be on the grid next year. And this race was definitely a indicator as to why he's just not had the pace or the luck with McLaren whatsoever. And I do
At
kind of
all.
think leaving Alpine or Renault or whatever was definitely not the right choice for him. So yeah, it sucks, but it is what it is.
You just got to see where he lands, I guess. Like, rumors are at the moment that he's going to be a reserve driver for Red Bull. I find that rumor insane, and I'm not sure what's going to happen with that. But like, imagine going back to be a reserve driver for the team that you left
Because it was
because
so
you
toxic.
weren't a top driver in the team,
Yeah.
and now you're going back to not even a second driver, like you're a reserve driver. That is insane.
Yes.
So I don't know. We'll see what happens to Danny Rick, but good luck to him. I don't know. Just like you said, that wasn't the race for him. I feel like it set up a really interesting grid for the race. Like, you
Yeah.
had Sainz in first position. Lewis was second because of the grid penalties of Leclerc. So he was second on the grid on the front row. Then you had Verstappen, who was in third. Then I think it was Russell who was fourth. It just was like all of my faves. You
Yeah.
got Carlos and Lewis and Russell, like all my faves. Um, but the first lap of the race was insane.
Yeah. So the opening lap, I think, I mean, we always love chaos, don't we? Especially on the opening lap. And I think we definitely got it because everyone wanted Carlos to do well this race. Everyone was hoping, like, yes, come on, like Ferrari can do it, they can get it. And unfortunately, he was driving. George kind of, I don't really know what happened, but he kind of went into him.
He
And
locked up.
yeah, that was it.
Yeah, he locked up, and I mean, I've seen hot takes from everybody, like he should have, if he was a better driver, he wouldn't have locked up there. But it's first corner of the lap, like, do you know how long they have to sit there and wait for all of the back of the pack to frigging catch up? And we
Yeah.
all know from the beginning of the year that the Mercedes does not warm up its tires like straight away. It just doesn't happen. So I'm not surprised that he locked up. I'm not surprised that Carlos like turned into him. And I think like he got the penalty that he deserved. He got a 5 second stop and go penalty to be taken in as pit stop. So, you know, the stewards were on it straight away. It wasn't like a one of those things where they really had to we had to wait for the outcome. I think the
Yeah.
biggest shame obviously was that Carlos ended up out of the race. But to me, it's like just above a racing incident. Yeah, it was George's fault, but what can he really do?
Yeah. Um, yeah. I mean, that was kind of the chaos of the opening lap, which then kind of set other drivers up to gain. For
Yeah.
example, you had Lance who managed to navigate his way through the chaos and get up to third.
Yep.
That I don't know, there was just so much happening, and it was kind of just like an oh my God, what is how is this race going to turn out? Because you had quite a few different race leaders in this race as well. You had Seb up there, you had Lewis up there, Max obviously. So yeah, it was kind of one of those races where we didn't really know how it was going to end up. Um,
I love that for us. I feel like 2022, we have not, in my opinion, had great racing and we deserved a race like this.
yeah, it was like just go back and watch it. If you haven't watched it, go back and watch it. And I would recommend watching the whole race, not just the highlights, because it
Yeah.
was
There was
so good.
something every lap. There wasn't a moment where you could just be chilled and like, oh, I'm gonna like sit on scroll on my phone or something like that. I had to have one eye on my phone and one eye glued to the TV at all times.
Yeah.
And um yeah, it was just there was battles on track. Like obviously, I think a big one for you was the Lance versus well, not Lance versus Alonso, but Alonso
So
kind
it
of
was Lance versus Alonso, because
yeah.
so right. So basically, so all of that racing happened and whatever. Like the opening race was like kind of crazy, but like steady. So you had obviously the pit window open. Um, I can't remember who, someone went in to change their front nose wing. All of that happened. Chaos, right? Then a little bit later on in the race, I think it was like almost mid-race, um, Bottas ended up in the gravel.
Yeah.
So
I
he
should have
did.
bet money on that. Like I had a feeling that he wasn't going to win this. Do you know? Like he just hasn't scored any points for so
Yeah,
many races, and I was like, I wonder if he was going to make it to the end of this race, and he didn't.
yeah,
I should have bet money.
he didn't. He DNF'd, ended up in the gravel, which triggered a safety car. So then there actually was a battle between Lance and Alonso, because I think Lance was lead no Lance was leading, Alonso overtook him, then the safety car happened. Alonso went in for a pit stop, came out behind Lance, and then they were battling. Then the safety car went in. Well, sorry, the safety car went in, then they were battling. And then that's when the incident happened. And Alonso ends up rear ending Stroll, literally flying off. And then Stroll's kind of like spun around on track. There's so much debris everywhere. And that's it. That's the end of the race for Lance, annoyingly. Whereas, no, sorry, that's it. That's when Alonso goes in and changes his like front wing and whatever, and then comes out and still manages to finish in the points.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. So for me, from watching it, like as soon as I watched when I was watching it, I feel like I was on point this race. Like I saw even before I think Brundle and Crofty were like, was that George? I knew George had hit Carlos because for some reason I was watching George when he was like going off when he was starting. So I knew it was George that had hit Carlos. Like I saw that exact lockup. And the same thing happened with Stroll and Alonso. Like I saw the moment that Stroll moved to the left when he was braking, and I personally think that it was Stroll's fault because you're not supposed to move under braking. And I know what you're gonna say. It's Alonso's fault because Alonso is behind, and we just don't really like him. So obviously we want it to be his fault. But that being said, was driving really, really well. Like you said, he was battling beforehand and he was doing everything that he was supposed to do. It was just in that moment, I feel like he just did a slightly erratic move and it could have been avoided had he not done that. I know you're not happy with me for saying that.
It's so hard because I hate to admit when like Alonso's right, you know, I'm not his
Yeah.
biggest fan, everyone knows that. But personally, and even Alonso said this himself afterwards, I do think it was a bit of a racing incident where Alonso made a bit of a dick move, moved to the left a little bit too late.
Mm.
Stroll, I think, was only trying to defend his position. He was still on the racing line. He didn't shove Alonso out of the way. He kind of just
Yeah.
slightly jigged to the left. And that caused this massive collision. So to be honest, I can see both points of view. You can say that like Lance shouldn't have done that and like he whatever. But then at the same time, you can because he was still on the racing line, he was trying to defend his position. So I don't know. Um, I guess it just depends on whose side you take, really. But for me, that was
Well, like I said, I don't take Alonso's side too often. So personally, I'm with Alonso on this one. But what I found completely insane after the race. So let's just skip to the end of the race just because we're talking about Alpine and Alonso. During that collision, his side wing mirror ended up like coming off. It ended up getting damaged, and
yeah,
actually, it came off a lot later in the race, and it flew off. And there was literally a moment where you just saw this little piece of debris like skirting along the the track, and basically he got pulled in at the end of the race. He got a summons, and I think it was like Haas because
yeah,
Kevin Magnussen had been penalised for something else. So Haas lodged a complaint against Alonso for having a bad wing mirror on track, saying it was unsafe. Then it was found at the very end of the race. So after he completed the race in this Nokia
like
3310 of a car
yeah,
because it literally was driving with so much damage and still managed to finish in the points. They added a 10-second time penalty, a 10-second stop and go penalty to his time. And obviously, because he could not complete the stop go penalty because he was no longer racing, it amounted to a 30-second penalty. So they added the time to his race time, obviously taking him out of the points. Now, whatever, like, okay, they can't make a frigging decision within the race. The steward should have known that if he was driving with a bit of, we're going to end up going back to the whole FIA bad stewarding decisions, blah, blah, blah. What I find freaking hilarious is obviously Alonso loves to troll the FIA and just troll everybody in general. So he's decided now that this is his soapbox that he's going to stand on, and he's like, this decision on this penalty will decide like the way the FIA are. And I'm like, hold on a second, we've got like COSCAT, Abu Dhabi. Like there are so many other things that we've been through in the last year or so that are literally kind of showing us how the FIA are. And Alonso thinks that he's the center of attention now because he had a freaking broken wing mirror. Pee off, mate.
he posted a tweet the other day where he literally referred to himself as a samurai, and I was like,
He thinks very highly of himself. But yeah, I just thought that was flipping hilarious because, as I said, there are bigger issues at hand at the moment.
also, can I just say karma? Because there was literally a point where you saw his radio message on track and he was
Yeah.
like, Hamilton's driving without any mirrors today, huh? And then this happens to him and his mirror actually comes off.
I thought that was so
So keep
hilarious.
your mouth shut.
So hilarious.
Yeah.
But yeah, elsewhere on the grid, what else was happening? So we had, as I said, the Mercedes were doing super well this weekend. Our beloved Lewis Hamilton was literally so close to a freaking win this weekend. I just want
It was
one.
brilliant.
I just want one for him. Like he drove so freaking well, and we know how shit that car is. We know how shit that car is.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, I've seen quite a few articles and things since then, and loads of people have been saying like the fact that he was so close just goes to show how far Mercedes have come this year, considering how badly they were doing.
Yeah.
It just goes to show his progression and obviously his talent and his perseverance. But yeah, that was brilliant racing, and it was so nice to kind of see up at the top on the time thing, like Hamilton and Verstappen. It was kind of like old days, where they were battling
And
against
they
each
were
other.
battling, and he was defending, and
It
like
was
he was.
beautiful racing.
There was good racing
Yeah,
that whole race. There was great racing from specifically. I feel Stroll, Vettel, Hamilton. I'm trying to think like Sainz went obviously after the first bit, so Sainz
Leclerc
was
as well,
gone.
to be fair.
Leclerc, that's what I was thinking of. Leclerc, I didn't really notice doing some amazing driving. There was, oh, actually no, there was that one bit where like him and Verstappen were like racing, and my only thought was this is what the F1 community thought this year was going to be like.
Yeah, yeah,
They
yeah.
thought that it was going to be like Leclerc and Verstappen swapping corners, but it wasn't like that this year. We just got a little bit of it this race.
Maybe next year.
Maybe next year, maybe.
But I guess the other major talking point was Seb and K-Mag on the last lap.
Yeah.
Beautiful racing. Oh my God. So Seb was told like going into the last lap, right, you're like 0.9 whatever away from K-Mag. You've been really good. Like you've got it in your car. Go for it. And Seb did. He literally went for it. And Kevin wasn't yielding, not easily. He was like, I'm going to fight for this. And
Yeah.
I mean, Seb's been on form recently. He had that photo finish with Alonso. I think that was in the last race. Was that in Japan?
Might have been,
Um,
yeah.
he had that photo finish with Alonso, and like even this race, he was just really fighting for it. So yeah, just tense battling, and literally up until the last minute, he just managed to take K Mag and get that position and get those extra few points for his team. So beautiful stuff from the Aston Martins this weekend. I was gutted for Stroll because it looked like it was going to, like all throughout the weekend, he just had a really strong weekend up until that incident with Alonso. But hey ho, we just come back stronger in Mexico, I suppose.
Yeah. And kind of to wrap it all up, really, the only other big thing that happened was Red Bull became the 2022 world champions this race. Um, I mean, like, here's a small trophy. I don't have one, so I'm gonna this big trophy. I mean, they have a real trophy that's huge and amazing, so they don't give a shit about my fake, invisible, small, teeny trophy. But I don't know. Like, I can't. There are people who I feel like have worked so hard in Red Bull. Like, I know some of the engineers, and I know that they do work incredibly hard. And I'm here for you guys. I'm here for that. But I can't celebrate for a team that right now is under scrutiny about how they've spent money and how they've kind of where that money's gone when it comes to like creating this car that they've just won with. So I don't know. For me, I'm like, oh, whatever. You guys have won. Congratulations. I think that if you are a Red Bull fan, you are entitled, obviously, to celebrate. Nobody can take that away from you. That is your team. That is your winnings. And if you're not a Red Bull fan, you're entitled to criticize. And I think understanding that difference and how different people can be feeling is key to how the F1 ecosystem can thrive together. What do you
I
think?
like this. It's like a bit of a TED talk.
Right? Yeah. I'm
Respect
giving
for
you
one
guys
another,
therapy.
guys, and respect each other's opinions. That's all I'm gonna say. Um, but no, seriously, well done, Red Bull. I mean, you have been on form this year. There might be questions around your legality and whatever, but you did it. So well done. Let's just see what happens next year. I mean, I'm not expecting much from Ferrari because I feel like I've been expecting loads from Ferrari for years and they just never deliver. So it is what it is.
I can't
Uh,
wait till we do our next season predictions video. I feel like it's going to be a
God,
really interesting one.
that's going to be hard
Um,
this year.
hmm?
It's going to be so hard after this year.
Yeah, because we just didn't know what to expect this year. We haven't seen the new regs cars, but now we've seen them, and now we know where they can go. So I'm quite looking forward to doing next year's predictions video.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, can you let me know who your loser of the day was?
Oh, God. I'm going to have to give it to Alonso because I feel like you know, that whole incident with Stroll, and then blah blah blah, and then like you still end up in the points. And I was just like, oh, whatever, just piss off. And then I feel like it was just the comment, the whole Hamilton's driving without his mirrors, and then he actually is driving without his mirrors, and then he gets called up on it, and then he gets a penalty which kicks him out of the points. I just feel like it's just a whole load of karma. So it goes to Alonso.
Fair enough. I'm gonna give it to Chili Boy. I'm gonna give it to Carlos. I think he had like he was out last weekend in Suzuka. He was out this weekend, and I think he's just had a bit of a shit couple of weeks, considering the fact that he went on pole. And like I said, like it was just such a juxtaposition of where I think he could have ended up. And I know it wasn't his fault, but I just think it's like been a crappy couple of weeks for him. And yeah.
Okay.
Your winner of the day, please, my lady.
Seb Vettel. I know he was driver of the day as well. But I think, yeah,
Yeah,
Seb.
did you wonder who Marium was gonna vote for? Because I didn't at all.
Yeah, I don't think anyone's surprised. But yeah, no, honestly, just great racing from him. Like over the past few weeks, he deserves it as well, considering he's coming to the end of his current F1 career. Who knows if he'll be back? Doubt it. But yeah, brilliant racing from him. Brilliant stuff from Aston Martin. Yeah, I think. In fact, was it this weekend that Aston Martin had the shitty pit stop? It was, wasn't it, on Seb's car? So he was in the
Might have
points,
been.
had a
It was a
really
long pit
bad
stop, I
long
could
pit
say.
stop,
Yeah.
kicked him out of the points, and had to battle his way in. So he would have, yes, it was this weekend, because I remember I was even more fuming, because I was like, that would have been a double points finish. And then, yeah. So anyway, Seb managed to claw his way back from like, I think he came out like 15th or something after that pit stop, and still managed to secure some points. So definitely Seb. Who's yours?
I really would have loved to have given it to Lance Stroll. I
Mm.
can't give it to Lance Stroll because he ended up DNFing, but I would have loved to have given it to Lance Stroll because I don't think I've ever given it to Lance Stroll. And I think he is more than deserving. Like, as much as people call him like a paid driver and stuff, at least he's not a little, like, at least he can actually freaking drive. Do you know what I mean? And that Aston has been worked on this year within the budget cap. Now we know. Because I was speculating, I was like, they've probably been
Yep.
fishing cash. But I think within the budget cap, and that's amazing for Aston. And I think had he not DNF'd, had he not done that little erratic jerk, he would have been in line for some great points. But since I can't give it to him, I'm going to give it to Lewis Hamilton because he drove amazingly. And just seeing his name up there, like I know he's going to get a win this year. I feel it in my bones. If it's not this weekend coming up at Mexico, it's going to be next time at Brazil. And if it's not Brazil, then it would be freaking Abu Dhabi. Like, you Red Bull. So
Whoa.
I'm just saying, I feel it in my gut.
Okay. Let's see how accurate your gut is.
Yeah.
But yeah, okay. Anyway, that is that for this video. Thank you, everyone, if you've made it through to the end of the video. Thanks for sticking with us. As usual, please like, share, subscribe, comment, all that jazz. Find us on Instagram and TikTok and Twitter. We're not active on any of those except from Twitter. But we will be at some point when I can get my life in order and stop having a breakdown every 2 minutes. So, in the meantime, just check us out on Twitter. And yeah, thank you so much for your continued support. And hopefully, we'll catch you next time after the Mexico City Grand Prix.
Yeah. Great. Thanks, guys. Bye.
Bye.